Hello, class. This week I want to talk about a time in history I believe would be a great enhancement to any uh, American history one course, any college level, and that is the French and Indian War, which is really the name we go by here in the United States, but elsewhere it's more commonly known as the Seven Years' War. Now, I'll get into why I believe it's a great enhancement to any class and the research I've found to actually solidify this. But a little history about the Seven Years' War. A lot of people only really, when they refer to the French Indian War, think about how its impact had here in the United States. Between the French and the Indians. I'm sorry, the French and the British and their American or Indian allies. But it's so much more than that. The Seven Years' War actually can be labeled the first world war in the sense that it encompassed five different continents. Every major European and Asian power at the time were involved. Not only were the French and the English obviously, but the Swedish, the Prussians, um, Spain. They were all involved in one way or another through different avenues. However, we're going to be focusing on the American portion, how it can enhance any uh, History One class course. What I'd like to dive into is the implications and what happened and the foundations that this war had on the American Revolution, which would happen, a decade later. And the great and some of the fighting men that were on the British during this time, in the French and Indian War, and then how they took that battlefield knowledge and experience and then used that knowledge against the British in the American Revolution. People like George Washington, Horatio Gates, Thomas Gage, individuals like that, who, when they fought the French and Indian War, were British loyalists, loyal to the British cause, you know. But then they started to see this trend about how the British really did not have the best interests of the colonies at heart, but more wanted to protect their interests in the United States. So, that's how I believe that this class would be a great, or this period would be a great addition to any, or furtherment to any U.S. History One class to really solidify that foundation between the French Indian War that led up, that went into the American Revolution. Some of the works that I have found so far, Warren Hofstede did a great book and actually listed five major reasons why the British went to war in against the French, and listed or on obviously because they didn't like the French. So obviously, there's been a long-standing history of aggression between the two. The French and the British really never got along. There were peace, but it was not a very good peace. He also listed how there were some concerns of British loyalists or colonials in the area, but further down the war, it got to seem that it wasn't really their main interest. They wanted to. Another reason was they wanted to solidify their global power. They were starting to go from a maritime process more into or maritime nation more into a colonial nation, to where they wanted to have solid bases of influence on major continents such as the Americas. Support for the British people around the world. They saw that if they could conquer the French in the Americas, then that would solidify their place in the global market. Some more works I found was Robert Millard and How Could a Beaver Start a War? And that's what the main trade was. The Ohio River Valley, which was owned by the French, the British, I'm sorry, correction, they were owned by the British, and the French were infringing upon that, infringing upon rights, kind of seemed familiar to the American Revolution. The British didn't want to give up those rights because the trapping was so great, the trade was great, their Indian allies was just great, so they didn't want to give that up. Finally, a work I found was a young man by the name of Matthew Ward, and he really goes into the foundational work about more than just the trade, but how the American colonists started to see that the British were only there to secure their interests. They really didn't have the colonials, state of mind. They didn't really protect them. They were only there to protect their interests and kind of treated them like dirt. So during this war, it really started to solidify the foundation that the British were not there to protect their colonists, but only to secure their rule in the nation. So that work started to stir up some of the emotions, and that, hey, they're not really here for us. They only care about their trade. They only care about the economy. They don't really care about the American colonists in the area. So, in closing, I want to kind of go over and go back to that. This is really a foundational work to the American Revolution. The French and Indian War started to see and set the pace, or set events in motion to really build up the American Revolution. And individuals who fought for the British in the French and Indian War would eventually turn that experience against the British in that war. Thank you.